man may not be on the top of his form, but he can still make himself useful.
Welcome back to the By Design podcast. I'm your host, Ronnie Knuckles. Today we've got a new episode.
What are you laughing about?
I'm just laughing, man. I'm happy to be here.
I thought
okay?
you spilled coffee or something. So
No, I just looked over and Wright's like this, staring at me.
All right.
Well, let's put my phone down.
Are you ready?
Sorry, you can't.
All right,
Nah,
we're
keep it
gonna
rolling.
start.
Keep it rolling. Keep it
All
rolling.
right, here we go. This is a real start. This is a real start.
I like
goes.
that start.
All right. Welcome back to the By Design podcast. I'm your host, Ronnie Knuckles, and today we've got a new type of episode that we've never done before. This is really where we're going to be talking about current topics that are going around, maybe certain things that are going on in our personal lives. We get to know you guys through the Bible study. I feel like you guys get to hear a little bit about who we are there. Excuse me. But outside of the one-on-one episodes and those types of things, I want you guys to get to really listen into our conversations and kind of like what they're like before we even hop on the podcast. And this is who we are. And so with that being said, we're going to dive into different topics and stuff, and I'll awkwardly start the conversation with the most recent story, breaking news yesterday. My wife has showed me probably 30 TikToks of people making fun of the situation, but Katy Perry, astronaut Katy Perry,
It's fake.
has gone to space.
Fake.
It is fake, and I've got proof.
Do you guys think we went to the moon, though? For real. Side note.
Yes.
I think we did.
Back in the day?
I think we did.
Not a
know.
chance.
I don't know.
I don't think we did.
I'm 50-50.
I don't think we did.
I'm 50-50. I think it was an
Wow.
arms race with the Russians.
It was
and
an
we were
arms
trying-
race Russians. We just lied.
Yeah.
I don't think we did.
You know where I heard that? Joe Rogan said it, so it must be true.
That's
That's
how you
true.
know it's true.
I
believe
just
everything
don't
Was
Well,
that
believe
you're-
it.
was that your thought or Ronnie's?
That's my thought. I brought it up. I
Well,
don't
you
think
just
it was
said
real.
everything.
Listen,
that
he
you
had the
said.
picture
Well,
in his brain. He thought it.
I was saying it out loud, and then
I know,
Ronnie
it was
just stole the show.
It was just funny. It was just
So, I mean, for real though, how do you feel about Katy Perry becoming an astronaut?
Well, she didn't go all the way to space. First of all,
She was floating, zero gravity, bro.
but that's not space.
She got stuck in the
If you're
firmament.
still in orbit,
who?
is it space?
What?
I don't know. But
Was it
anyway, but if you look at the
firmament?
video of the capsule coming down and landing, right? It's a pressurized capsule.
Yep.
Lands,
here
and
this
then
guy
as they're
goes.
bringing up, because it was the live feed, as they're coming up to do the big exit and all that stuff, the door opens before anybody even gets up there from the inside, and a little aide runs up there and says something, and then the door closes. Then Jeff Bezos himself comes up. He's got this big crowbar wrench looking thing, and then he undoes the door and then opens it up. So
I don't know,
already
man. I don't know if I
something's
believe
fishy.
that. I think they went to space.
Yeah,
But
well,
I-
maybe, but something's off though, because you shouldn't be able to open that door from inside that pod. It's
You know what's
pressurized.
off to me? What's off to me is that they are not astronauts, and that they should not be called a crew. They're trying to make it this feminist thing where it's like we're the first the first crew of all women to go to space, and it's like you literally just rode in a capsule.
Yeah, it was
Who
guided.
was it? It was
first of
Katy
all.
Perry,
They weren't
Gail
the crew.
King. Who else was it?
I don't know.
the way she kissed
Jeff
the ground, like
Bezos'
she was
girlfriend.
happy to be alive and be back, though, man.
I saw
you
a
know,
meme, and it was like, imagine being a female astronaut who was just stuck in space for 8 months, and all you see is Katy Perry kissing the ground after going to space
what,
for
5
10
minutes or whatever it was.
Someone
5
said, I
minutes.
saw a tweet, and it said they were up in space for it wasn't a long time.
It was 11 minutes.
11 minutes. Someone
Yeah.
said she must have started singing up there.
Bring her back down.
Recorded a song and came back.
Yeah.
That's good. Man. Yeah, no, I've just seen so many people talking.
I feel like it was random. I don't remember hearing
I
anything
know.
about it, and then out of nowhere, they're up in space and back down already.
Yeah.
I think it was just like there are a bunch of rich people,
Yeah.
and they wanted to go do the. First of all, that thing is cool. Like I would do that.
I was gonna say, would you guys do it?
The Dude Perfect guys went and did it.
Yeah, I would go.
Go up to space?
Oh yeah.
I'd go for sure.
I don't think
would
I
hope
would.
to meet some aliens, I think.
Oh, you believe in aliens?
Now, you got to
huh?
go into the ocean
Yeah.
here to meet some
Yeah.
aliens.
Under the water.
How you figure?
That's
you
where
never
that's,
watched Joe Rogan, bro?
that's where we're seeing all the. That's where the motherships and stuff are
Yeah.
off the coast of Florida.
Yeah, they're in the.
All
And
these
the ships,
files
they're
are getting
tracking them
debunked
back to the
too.
sea.
Like We've had
This is gonna get
UFO
wild.
interactions and stuff. Aliens is obviously a topic everybody always
I,
talks
saw
don't know.
something-
I think it's demons.
I saw something the other day, and I don't remember what country it was, but people believe that these aliens turned, I think, 23 soldiers to stone.
Oh, I did read that. Well,
saw
that's
that?
actual like
So now we're in Narnia.
KGB documents, like classified documents. That
Yeah.
That's what it
I did
was.
see
Yeah,
that.
it
It
was
got
classified.
declassified, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's no longer
Does,
classified.
if
Ryan Weasley
aliens
knows it.
are real, is that in the Bible?
Aliens are not real, according to
The Bible?
I don't know. I don't think the Bible answers that question. What I think we've got going on now. Okay, here's my theory.
Oh, here we
We're
go.
going to go on a rabbit hole for a second. Okay, imagine with me, if you will,
I'm good at that.
that the rapture happens. Right.
Okay.
So one day, all Christians get called up into heaven. How do you explain that away? How do you explain that away without there being aliens? You don't believe in God. This is assuming that the rapture happens pre-tribulation. So you don't believe in God at all. They were abducted by aliens, and I think in the world today, where we were talking about on our last episode, the stage is kind of being set for a guy to come in like the Antichrist, and again, I don't know how soon that's going to be, but the conversation about aliens, I think, is like more prevalent than it has ever been.
So are you saying you believe in aliens?
I think that our enemy is a deceiver, and I think that he can do. He's not all powerful, but he can certainly trick humans into believing that there are aliens, so that when, say, the rapture happens, it can be explained away in such a way that makes sense for people to digest and then follow him.
Playing the long game.
Now, look, that's a complete theory. There's nothing to back that.
Remember those drones
I'm
up in New
just-
Jersey?
Just so we're clear, Ronnie does not know.
Yeah.
I am thinking
Cannot
thoughts.
confirm.
Just look
Okay?
into it.
Yeah.
But Google it.
But on the flip side of it, like I don't know. I mean, it's we know how vast and huge the universe is. Like I think
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy to think that like God didn't. He just only created life on this one planet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we could just be the one fallen world because obviously we know that Satan physically was cast down to Earth.
Yeah.
And I don't know. But then I feel like there's with a lot of the stuff we're seeing with the alien sightings and like how it's happening here, or the alien sightings, depending on where you stand. I think it's more of like an interdimensional, or like you said, like a spiritual realm thing.
Yeah.
And
But do we know how big the universe is if we're just in one galaxy?
Well, we know the
What if it's
observable.
just-
We know the observable.
What if like the whole
universe.
government stuff and debunking the classified document stuff is all just like a intention thing? Like, oh, we got something else going on, but we're just gonna.
Sure, there's
Oh, like to
psyops.
divert-
There's
yeah,
definitely
like a
there's
diversion
definitely some-
thing.
there's
It's like,
some
oh
sure
well,
psyops.
It can be
something
both.
crazy happened domestically here, but let's just say we saw aliens in New Mexico again, and they'll
Well,
talk about that instead.
I think
there's
it could be
some
both though.
convincing
Like
stuff.
it could be happening, and
Yeah.
then they're also capitalizing on it.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the Navy pilot?
Bring up aliens again. They'll believe it.
They were tracking an object over the Pacific,
Yep.
and
Oh yeah.
they catch this thing on their radar. I don't know his name again. He was on the Joe Rogan show. But they see something on their radar that's moving at a rapid rate of speed, and they dial in on it, and it moves. They show the clip. It moves so fast out of his radar.
It's probably John.
That it couldn't have been any current technology that we know is. It's probably
apostle?
John.
It's probably John.
He's
yeah.
going back to the last
The
episode.
Revelator.
Because he's so fast.
No, John. He was so fast.
right,
For a second, I was like,
Lost.
"What, John who?"
Oh my goodness.
That boy out there running, dude.
So to me, that's like not a guy who's going to just say that.
Right.
So I think that there's some interesting stuff.
I
about it,
also
for
think
sure.
that the ocean is more terrifying and interesting than space.
I would agree with that.
I
Oh,
think the
yeah.
ocean is way more interesting than space.
Well, we've still only discovered like 20% of.
That's what I'm saying.
I feel
And,
like they've discovered
I think
more
less
about
than
space
20
than they
actually.
have.
I just feel like you get out to space and it's kind of like you just like okay.
I mean, space is terrifying, but your death, if you're going to die in space, it's going to be like instant.
Yeah. you
Whereas in the
combust.
ocean, I mean, unless you get crushed by pressure,
Yeah.
you're going to know what.
I think the creatures
You
in the
can't
ocean.
breathe in either one of them.
the,
True.
It's a big common
True.
thing.
Right.
True.
right.
I see a trend.
I think
The creatures in the ocean are what is like really interesting to me. It's like we're still finding new creatures in the ocean to this day.
Octopus
All the time.
are aliens.
octopuses are aliens
It's
for
octopi.
sure, dude.
Octopi.
It's octopuses. You can Google it.
Did they rename them?
No,
Hang
Are
on.
we sure, man?
Really?
I feel like you made that up.
I'm 1,000,000%
sounds like a
sure.
made-
I
up
know
word.
that
That's a
growing up,
fun
I
fact.
was taught they
I've
were
done the
octopuses.
research. I've done the research, guys, and it's octopuses.
Tim studies
Oh,
octopus.
we're talking about
Stop
plural.
saying that.
It is the correct plural of
Please.
octopus is octopuses.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you
learned
very much.
something new.
Let the record
learned
say
something new
it
daily.
is octopuses.
What? Because I enunciate.
I don't think
Sorry.
you wanted to say it.
You really said that. Oh boy. Okay.
Anyways,
I don't make the rules.
I just feel like it's crazy. They're still finding new creatures every day in the ocean. It's just like you see a new picture of something, and it's like, well, now in this day,
In
AI
Latin,
or
it is
something.
octopi.
It is terrifying.
Ooh, and I
Well-
got Latin tattooed on my back, son.
Yeah.
So,
That don't mean
You got a little
nothing to
tramp
me.
stamp
So I'm right.
That don't mean nothing to
So I'm
me.
also
Show
right.
the people.
Where on the back is this
What did I hear
tattoo?
about a tramp stamp?
Is it
My
tramp?
derriere.
Yeah.
My
Is it a
dick.
tramp stamp?
It's on his left butt cheek.
Did you say derriere?
That's a thing, right? Is that a thing?
It's
or
a
is it-
thing,
did we
but
just make that
people
up
just
in the
don't say
90s?
it.
That's
Yeah,
slang
maybe
for
like
butthole.
in the 40s.
Yeah.
when you were
now it's
born.
wagon. Now you got a tattoo on your wagon.
On my dump truck.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Oh, dump truck daddy over there.
You don't have a dump truck.
I know, man. It's sad. I used to.
You
Sit in a chair too much.
It got repoed.
Sad about his tater.
I didn't make my
I
payments.
forgot to pay the note.
Ain't no way.
All right.
Anyways.
What were we talking about?
Katy
The
Perry in
ocean.
space.
You were going to say
crazy.
something about the ocean, Tim, and we cut you
Oh
off.
man, I saw a TikTok, dude, and it was like this. These dudes are like on a canoe or something, and there's just a whale.
Why are you talking like
Dudes
this?
on a canoe.
Anyway,
dudes
go
on
ahead,
a
go ahead.
canoe.
Talking like what?
Go ahead. Go
That's how I
ahead.
talk, man. Quit playing with me.
Lord. Tim's getting
You gotta. I get real hood when I talk
He's
about
getting into character.
conspiracies
when
now.
he talks about a canoe.
Dudes on a canoe.
There's a whale, and he's just like at the surface of the water with his mouth open like this, and it
For
looks
those
like
that can't hear, he's using his hand
can't see.
extended.
You can't hear.
I
They
mean,
can hear.
They'll be able to see.
we're getting out of
They'll
control.
be able to see it.
You got to be able to hear Tim's hand.
But he's like breached the surface of the water and
Mouth
just
open.
it looks like some type of weird like rock formation or like some weird thing. It doesn't look like a whale mouth,
Right.
you know. And he's just gobbling up fish, dude. There's a bunch of fish jumping in his mouth, and then he closes his mouth real quick and goes back to the
He's
deep.
just eating lunch.
Have you seen him? Have you seen that guy? Seen the story of that guy that was in like Maine or Maryland?
Oh, in the
And he was
kayak?
out like crabbing or something, and he got swallowed by like a sperm whale.
He died.
yeah.
No,
Oh,
didn't he
it
get
spit him
out?
right back
Yeah,
out.
I
he
think I
got
did
out.
see that. Yeah, he did.
I don't think it was a sperm whale. I think it was a humpback. Yeah.
Might have been a humpback. yeah.
Sperm whales actually have like
Yeah,
real
the
teeth
humpbacks
and
have
stuff.
a real
Like
wide
what?
mouth or
chomp it
whatever.
up.
Because they come up and they catch plankton, you know.
Yep.
And he just happened to be like over a school
Man.
of plankton, and it just.
Because a sperm whale probably wouldn't have spit them out because they are carnivorous.
Really?
You're losing your mic here, brother.
Oh.
Don't worry, I got you.
Yeah, they
But yeah,
primarily
no,
feed on
imagine that, though.
krakens.
Imagine being that guy. It spit him out like instantly.
Yeah.
But those,
Yeah, he was
those-
like, "Whoops."
Those like 4 seconds, man, that had to be terrifying.
You think
Oh, I mean,
think
you
the
gotta
whale
think you're
thought he
not-
tasted bad?
I'm never dipping a toe in the ocean.
I also don't like swimming in the ocean at
yeah?
all. I hate
Good.
it.
It's good for you, man. All
I
that
hate
salt
it.
on your
Nope.
body.
Don't care. I'll
That's
just
how he
put
gets his
kosher
hair
salt on my
like
body.
that.
Don't care.
I'm not a
Sea
big
salt.
fan of it. I mean, I'll go into about my waist, and even that is.
So what about
Somewhat
6 inches
terrifying.
deep?
I'm glad it was you and not
All
me,
right,
brother.
you guys have a good day out here.
I wish I
Kings
could have
unite.
said
You
that.
guys have a good day out
was a
here.
good
I'm
one.
out.
No, look, it's weird. Okay, as I've gotten older, I like going out into the water less and less.
Okay.
Here's a couple
I think
things.
that's a deeper
though.
issue
I'm
there,
way
but-
fatter and I'm less athletic, and I don't trust myself enough to get out of a sticky
That means you like
situation.
float better, though, doesn't it?
It's
No, I don't think so. I
That's
think
more
it's
meat.
more of an anchor.
Is there a correlation between body fat and buoyancy?
I think you just sink.
Google it.
I don't
don't
know,
know.
man. I'm quite buoyant, and I'm the fattest one here, so
I think
you
you're pretty
float?
fit.
I float real good, especially
Okay.
in the ocean. That's
Might
one
be
of my
some
favorite
correlation
things.
there.
He's a true floater.
I'll get out like chest level
He's a
and then
real
just
floater.
float on
Floating
my
like
back and let the waves kind of
Do their thing.
rock me around.
I float good.
I float real good, dude. I float with the best of them.
All right, so the ocean is scary. We know that.
Space.
You know, the
seems kinda
people. You
boring
know,
to me.
they've done studies though that people that live close to the ocean live on average longer
Hmm.
than people that don't. Obviously, not the ones that die from a
Are we
shark,
gonna
but
be
Wonder why.
one of those? We just
it's
like say
something.
things and we
It's
don't know
something
for
good
sure.
for your body.
in the
Yep.
air.
That's
No,
kind of
probably
what
in
we're
the
doing
sea.
I
here.
feel like that's something my grandmother would have said,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then I
You know
just
what?
assumed it was right my whole life, and
think
then
you're
I
lying.
learned later on that it's
I'm not.
not.
I think you're
Are there
lying.
some
Look it up.
facts behind it?
Oh, there's facts behind it.
All right.
You want me to cite my sources here?
Do
I
it,
mean,
Jamie.
think about the peace you feel on when you go on vacation to the
You know,
beach.
I've lived by the ocean. Okay,
Overrated.
I never went when I lived by it.
Yeah.
Like when I first moved to California, I thought the ocean was so cool. When I was a kid, I loved going to the ocean because it was an escape. Then I lived in California. Now, I was training on the beach a lot, which made me hate sand.
Yeah.
But also, when I could just go on the weekends to the beach at any time, it was like the last thing I wanted to do.
Well, I think it's one of those things too. Once it's so accessible, you just kind of lose.
Well, and also it's like I gotta
excitement
go
of it.
get sandy.
Yeah.
And like you don't really take in the beauty of the ocean and
Yeah.
and the creation part of it. You know, it's just kind of like
Well, the way I look at it is when you go on vacation, how ready are you to be back home after 4 to 5 days?
Yeah, I mean, going to the beach every.
0%.
Yeah, that
Vacation
depends,
to
that
the
depends on
beach.
who you're with.
I tell myself
I'm
could
with
live
you
here.
on that.
I could live
I
here.
have 4 or 5 days of vacation. I'm usually ready to get back home and get
The
back in my
first 2
routine.
days of vacation for me are awful.
But that's usually because
The first 2 days?
Yeah, because I have to wind down. I have to like release all the
It's hard to disconnect.
Getting that
tension and work
vacation
stress and,
mindset.
like get myself into the mind.
Yeah, see,
frame.
I don't have that. I can just flip the switch and go in vacation mode like that.
But
first
when I'm in
day is generally
vacation
rough.
mode, it's very hard.
I was
to
going
come
to knock
out
that
of it.
camera over.
Yeah, so it has more to do with like the sea air. It's nothing like crazy about, but studies do show that it's people do live longer. Sea air encourages respiratory health, and then also you're getting more sun exposure, which we know vitamin D
Yeah,
now is
vitamin
very
I
important
told
for
you
us.
it's the air.
And then a less stressed. Typically, if you're on vacation and stuff, other factors notwithstanding, you're a little less stressed. But stress has a huge impact on our body.
Well, I think that's Kentucky has one of the highest death rates in the country.
Really?
Yeah, I think we have.
Of stress?
Well, I think it's like people die more often around this part of the country, West Virginia, Kentucky, even like Mississippi and Arkansas.
Interesting.
Stress levels are higher, poverty is much higher, and so I think that there's some correlation. Now, look, also we have terrible air here. We don't have great air. There's a lot of pollution because things get trapped here, and so I think.
But we
there's
have the
probably
best
some of that.
water.
We do have really good
Oh, yeah.
water.
Tap water.
Louisville,
water.
Louisville
If you could-
especially.
Blew my
If you-
Louisville
mind.
tap water
Blew my
is
mind coming from
goated.
Nashville.
You could
that
taste the difference?
Crap tap water. Oh yeah, 100%.
It's the
for
limestone
sure.
in the water, and
Dude, it's so good.
Especially if you go to Florida,
you
that
could
water
retire-
is gross.
Like, when you retire, would you want to live on the beach when you retire?
I would
Yeah.
like to own a beach home in a perfect world
Yeah.
that I could go to.
If I'm going to
Yeah.
live somewhere, though, I want to be like, wilderness mode. Like, that's
I'm-
where I
I'm
want to
with
be.
you, yeah.
I want to be like
Or
trees,
like a cabin in the woods type
trees,
of guy?
mountains.
That's what's so great
fields,
about like
babbling
North
brooks.
Carolina, Georgia, Florida.
Tennessee.
Like you can be on the beach and you're still
Close enough to
Oh, we're
park.
talking about beach
relatively close to
Mountains.
mountains and woods and
Yeah.
stuff too.
I would rather be in the mountains and be able to escape to the beach than to be in the beach and have to escape.
I
to
think
the
I'm
mountains,
opposite.
so.
To me,
Me
although
too,
I don't
yeah.
love the beach, but something about when I'm older, just like having like a beach front, like you're like I'm saying, like you walk out on your back deck and the beach is right there. Like you like sitting on your deck there, drinking a cup of coffee with the beach would be really fun. I'm not saying to go get in the sand all the time.
Ideal
but
scenario, though.
I think that would be fun.
You've been a good steward of your wealth in such a way that you may be able to own, even if it's just an Airbnb that you rent out.
Yeah.
You have a place that you can escape to,
Yeah.
so that you kind of got the best of
Well,
both-
I've seen that's
both
what people
worlds.
do now. Instead of buying rental homes or homes that you don't live in for much, I think you just get like an Airbnb for a month or two out the year.
Well, yeah, I know multiple people even in our family that do that.
Yeah.
They have, and it's not like necessarily a house, but it could be a condo.
Yeah.
And they just Airbnb it out when they're not there. And
Do they do it in the winter
No,
time a lot?
I'm saying
Like the winter, they go and
yeah,
That's-
they go.
that's
certain
like when
times.
I
I'm
would
saying
do it.
instead of getting a property down south or whatever it
Yeah.
is, when you want to take a vacation, like my dad's talked about this before, instead of buying a property down there and having to deal with all that, you just rent out an Airbnb for 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
It's fully furnished. It's like a mortgage payment essentially, and you just stay there for 2 months, and then you come back home. You
I
don't
like
have to
the-
handle any of the stuff about it.
I like the idea of the asset of the whole thing. Though,
Yeah.
Because it's like
Yeah.
it's a wealth
Obviously,
how
obviously
much
you
the,
can rent it
the
out to
asset would
people?
be nice, but it's also like I don't think people understand the headache that
well,
it
you got
comes
to hire
with.
a property management
Yeah,
company that
the
handles it
headache
when you're
that
not
comes with
there.
owning properties,
Sure,
multiple
yeah.
properties,
Well, yeah.
and how
But
bad you get burned
if
on
you're if you're renting an Airbnb for 1 or 2 months, what's the
Probably
yearly
going to cost you
cost? on
$30,000 or
that?
$40,000.
Okay, so
it.
then what's
For a year. Or-
Well, how much annually would that cost overall?
yeah? If you
So
if
say you do that for 2 months out
Right,
of the year. How
right.
much would it
every
cost?
year, how much is that 2 months?
It's probably going to cost you 30 or 40 grand.
Okay, then how much is a mortgage payment on
Monthly?
on a property
Oh,
on
down-
$4,000
a beachfront property?
or $5,000 a month.
Well, yeah, you're looking at 60, 70 grand.
depending on the property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
obviously.
maybe somewhere
Okay,
between
okay.
5 and 10,000.
I would just say let's just do $5,000 for an easy number. So you're paying 60 grand a year on a house that you don't even.
But you're Airbnb-ing it out when you're not there, so you're actually making that money.
But I just
back.
feel
Right,
like you like
right.
people have this
And it's
thing
an
where you think
appreciating asset.
you
Yep.
think it's always going to be rented out. It's not the case.
No, but still, if you're still going to pay 30 grand, it'll be rented out enough for you to at least break even on what you would pay if you were to rent.
I just
out
feel like
those
if
2
you
months
own a
anyway.
$5,000 property on the beach, you're going I have to at least get it rented out for half the month to cover at least just the property mortgage.
Depending on the market that you're in, you could do that.
True.
But if you're in like,
To me, though, just to save myself from the headache, obviously rental properties is the,
I like
is, the,
that
is,
idea.
the, is the shortcut.
I mean, I like both ideas. To be
but
honest.
just if I wanted to like just have a space where if I go for 2 months out the year when it's cold here and just pay like $2,500 for the month and then $2,500 a month and then
you ain't paying $2,500 a month. The,
Yeah, you
the
are.
beach house we stayed in Florida.
well, I don't need a 15 bedroom. I don't have 20 kids like you.
$2,500 a week, dog.
$2,500 a week.
I
for-
found-
for
and that's a bad
crappy
one.
I found a little condo on the beach. It was
We're
$2,600
talking
for the
about a
month.
condo. We're talking about a house.
Well, I don't need a 30-bedroom house. I don't
What
have
beach
30
is that,
kids.
like
Comparing
Panama
apples to
City?
oranges.
No, it was what's the one everybody retires at?
Florida.
No, yeah, it's down in Florida.
St. Augustine.
Uh,
Destin, 30A.
No,
not
Seaside.
38,
Naples.
no.
Naples.
Naples.
Naples is like
No
retirement
shot you're
center.
finding anything in Naples for
Okay.
that price.
Okay, I'll find it.
There's another one, Bonita Springs. Beautiful place. Anybody listening who's never been,
Dolly's still
recommend
licking the
going.
wall over here.
So something that I wanted to touch on, we went off on a long trail there. I'm sure we lost some people on that. But
Whatever.
one thing I wanted to touch on here was we're going to get into some sports debate probably, but Woosley and I went to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Dinner of Champions or Night of Champions.
I believe, yep.
If it was a Dinner of Champions,
I think it was Night of Champions.
Yeah.
There wasn't much dinner
they had-
there. It
they
was a
had
chicken
cold
sandwich.
Chicken sandwich.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we got to go to that this past weekend, and it was incredible, dude.
It was awesome.
What is happening at the University of Louisville right now with their Fellowship of Christian Athletes is insane.
They got some special stuff going on there. They really do.
They really do. So, did you find it? You
Yeah,
found it?
$2,500 right here, a condo in Naples.
Trash.
But it's not on the beach,
not
which
on
is
the
what you were
beach.
talking about.
Okay, I'll find one on the beach.
It's like an hour from the beach.
But anyways,
Anyway, sorry.
It's like right next to a factory.
Just know that I'm right and you all are wrong.
Well, we're talking about on the beach, so prove it.
Yeah, you're still wrong.
Anyway,
No, I'm always right.
okay.
You're tacky and I hate you.
So FCA.
FCA. So we get invited to this by our pastor, and he's on the board for the FCA Louisville, and I've heard of the FCA. Tim, I think you're involved in FCA Bullitt County, right? Or you've been in a meeting?
Well, so my church supports some of their stuff and the people that run it. It's Aaron and Tara Branch.
Okay. In the
Super cool.
in the Bullitt County or in the
That's
Louisville
Bullitt
one?
County. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Bullitt County FCA.
So for
And
those
they're
of you,
doing a ton of cool stuff.
dude, the FCA is such a cool thing.
Yeah,
that I
there's
didn't know.
there's a big movement amongst like middle and high schoolers, especially in like the Bullitt County area. Overall, really.
I think in the country.
But they're doing a
It's
lot
up
of
in the whole
stuff
country.
with that.
You got
Dakota
Dolly.
having his.
She is just
Dolly.
messing everything.
Sorry, we have a surprise visitor here.
I mean, she's just running
Dolly,
into
she's
stuff.
like our mascot. She's just running into the table.
Dolly,
Licking
get.
walls.
She's now on top of my cords, pulling my headphones off.
Yep,
So
I'm telling you, dude.
it's gonna be fun. She needs attention right now. We're
Yeah.
not giving it to her.
She's just a
Sorry,
baby.
Dolly, you're literally pulling my head. Okay.
She wants to be involved.
She does. She's feeling okay. She's stable. All right. Anyway, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. First of all, I've heard of it. Like I've heard of FCA before. Never really thought anything about it. We got invited to this, and I thought it would just be kind of cool to go see. Louisville got a new head coach. For those of you watching or listening, Kentucky, in the state of Kentucky, basketball is the thing. So in Alabama and Georgia, it's football. In Kentucky, North Carolina, Indiana, it's basketball. And so
Florida too, apparently.
Florida, apparently, now is a
yeah.
basketball state.
Was football, but
It's still football. I mean, their fans care about football, but they won a
They
championship.
did just win the championship.
But you got in Kentucky, it's like you got two top tier programs, and we don't have any pro sports. And so having the opportunity to go here, Louisville had a great run this year, and I really like their coach. As much as it pains me to say, he's awesome. And so we had the opportunity. He was going to be the keynote speaker, so we thought, well, it'd be cool to go see him speak. So anyway, Ryan and I go, and of course, we got to hear Louisville's athletic director talk, and Pat Kelsey, the head coach of U of L, and man, what a great speaker he is. But we got to hear the stories of a lot of these student athletes, and so when you think about big universities, my grandma told me back in the day I was talking about going to college, and she was like, "Oh, don't go to college; it'll corrupt your soul. They're so liberal." At
there's a
college."
lot of
They'll get you.
corruption there. There is.
So first of all, I went to U of L for a little while, and there is a lot of that. But that's the only thing you ever hear about. You see Charlie Kirk going to college campuses and debating liberals, but you never see these. There's Christ movements happening at these universities, and not just like with every standard students. It's happening inside of the athletic departments. So Pat Kelsey, he's leading one of the top college basketball programs in the country. He's a Christian. You got Mark Pope at Kentucky, same thing. But to see what's happening on campus and what Christ is doing. So that whole night was really to honor Christ and to talk about how Christ has changed people's lives. And they had, correct me if I'm wrong, we talked about this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly how many student athletes are at the university.
But 300 plus of them are involved in the FCA, and then 70% of those are in small groups.
Are in active small groups.
Yeah.
And in these small groups, they're going through Bible studies like we do, and they're praying together and they're trying to grow in Christ. And they shared these stories of individual athletes. One of them that really stands out to me had everybody in the room crying, almost cried.
Mm-hmm.
I choked it down. But one of the cheerleaders, and I don't want to drop her name, she was at a point. So she had transferred into U of L to become a cheerleader. She grew up homeless and had a lot of issues, and the gym that she was training at kind of paid her way through cheerleading, and she ended up getting a scholarship to U of L. So she comes to U of L, and she had relationship issues where she was like really connected with someone, and that person betrayed her and all this, and she was going to jump off the walking bridge in downtown Louisville, and she had forgot to turn her location off on her phone, and one of the other cheerleaders found her down there right before she was about to jump off, and was like, got her down. They cried and kind of came together, and she realized in that moment that Christ was working through the other cheerleader, and saving her, and then bringing her. So she got connected into FCA and became a follower of Christ and all this stuff. Man, you hear those stories and you see an entire athletic department in a secular public university. And it was so life-giving, dude.
It was powerful. It
really
really was.
It was
That's
awesome.
crazy.
Yeah, so I wanted to share that story. I know it was we go from beach houses and oceans to that, but anyone listening in Louisville, you should maybe consider helping out the Louisville FCA program, because they're doing real things in college-age students. I think, coaches can change lives through teaching hard work and commitment and all those sorts of things, but the ultimate heart changer is Christ. And that organization, or that part of U of L, is actively doing that in a way that I think is going to make ripples across not just Louisville, but across the United States.
It's a really good demographic.
Most of these students are not from Louisville.
Yeah.
So we're talking. I mean, they had some lacrosse players sitting at our table. I think one was from Minnesota and one was from
Maryland,
maybe something like that. So you're talking about this is the gospel spreading.
Yeah.
And it's happening at a secular university, and I think that's the ultimate slap.
and
in
just
the face
seeing
of
that
the
in
enemy.
young kids. I mean,
Yeah.
well,
They're young,
young
dude.
adults.
It was weird.
Yeah, I think that's a great demographic
Young
too. Like, because in college you are very conflicted and confused on what you need to be doing in life.
Yeah, and I think when I was in college and when I had gotten out, I was older. Like, I was the old man in college. I was like 23. There is confusion, but there was also, like, we talked about this before. It's not, or it wasn't cool to be like going to church and a Christ follower. And I think culture is shifting. And I think that, of course, there's always going to be people that think it's lame and all that, which, whatever. But I think that the overall culture is beginning to shift, and it's because of these programs at these major universities who are introducing people to Christ and sharing the gospel, that people are starting to realize, oh, this isn't as lame as I thought it was. This is like what life is about, even at a young age.
And it's showcasing the importance of community there, that there was somebody that, she was involved with that was able to come and like rescue her. And I think that's so important for young people, is that physical community aspect of it, because especially in today's day and age with so much social media and just kind of everything's online. And I think people think that, I can get all the socialization and stuff that I need, just on the internet. I'm constantly talking to people and doing all that, but actually coming together, like that small group statistic, 70% is a huge number, but
crazy.
that's what these kids are starved for, especially this generation of kids.
Yeah.
Because you don't get that just
And they
behind
want
a
the
screen.
truth, man. Like, they want the truth. And I think that by having like the small group, that's where you really get the truth. Like the Bible study we just had. And you were just like, this seems like it's more connected in a way.
It makes more sense.
Yeah, because it's not like this rigid, structured thing where you just get to hear one guy tell you, not necessarily what to think, but give his perspective. And you get the opportunity to do that with everyone, and that's where the truth is found. And I think the kids are hungry for that, and so.
I think the interesting part of our story too is, when you commit to somebody and you get betrayed, you kind of it becomes the only thing you focus on. You kind of forget you do have great people in your corner.
And I think
you do have friends you can rely on and stuff. But when you're in that headspace of feeling so betrayed and just alone, that you forget that there are people that do care about you. And I wish there was a way you could tell people to just like. Obviously, people just don't reach out naturally. Like, you just kind of block yourself off when you're heartbroken, when things are going on. But I just wish there was a better way for people to communicate with their friends that, like, hey, I'm actually really going through something. And I don't know if that's a two-way street. Friends aren't saying, hey, like, checking in on you.
It's not easy to be vulnerable
and
about
stuff like that. Right.
That.
So how do you teach younger adults and stuff to be more vulnerable about those situations to where you feel completely alone, but you have great people and family and friends that still love you and want to help you? But they just, everybody puts on a fake
not
smile.
opening themselves up.
Well,
to it.
Here's the other thing too. I've had a lot of friends that have committed suicide, and guys I was in the military with. I think like 6 guys I was in with have killed themselves, and the problem is it's kind of a two-way street. So, like one guy, they killed himself. Like it was the way that it happened was brutal, and I don't want to get into that. But I had just talked to him like 2 weeks before that, and everything was fine. Like he was starting a business, everything seemed good. It was odd. It just kind of happened out of nowhere. Now, of course, I'm 2,000 miles away from this guy, right? So like, it's not like somebody that I see in person and maybe I can tell the signs. But I also think that there is a good, strong possibility that you're not going to be able to tell the signs, and it comes back to the person that is struggling. And people are really good at portraying a certain way while internalizing. Robin Williams is a great example of that. Mm-hmm. He was a hilarious comedian, a very happy-go-lucky guy. At least that was his brand on camera, and he killed himself. But so my point is, I don't think that as survivors, I guess, of people that you knew that have killed themselves. I don't want to say survivors, but like friends of people that have taken their lives. It's hard to take on that guilt when you start to think back on, well, that person never showed any
when you're
signs.
truly blindsided by it.
So can you recognize the signs? Are there certain things that you should recognize and act on? Sure. But a lot of times people are good at faking that. So my remedy for that, there's only one remedy, and it's Christ. Mm-hmm. I think that the only person who can heal their internal heart and see it for what it is Christ. Now,
the one who made it.
I'm not saying that they should be in counseling. They should seek human help. Okay? But if they aren't open to doing that, or if they're not willing to do that, the one person that can make that happen is Christ. And so I think our responsibility is making sure that we get them in an environment where they get to hear that truth. Because, you had mentioned being betrayed, and Christ was every emotion or every pain that we have felt, the creator of the universe actually also felt. He came down to earth and experienced those same pains. He was betrayed by his disciples that followed him, that were close friends. I mean, imagine if one of us betrayed you, and because of our betrayal, you literally got crucified. Like literally crucified, not just crucified on social media.
I'd be a little irritated at you guys.
So my point is,
I'd be angry.
My point is, from her perspective, or someone else who's been betrayed, when they come to Christ, it's not like they're talking to some being that's never experienced that same pain. You know what I mean? Christ has been there. He understands what that feels like, and he knows how to speak to your heart in such a way to remedy that maybe someone externally can't.
Right.
So,
And he feels that with you too. He's the ultimate friend.
yeah.
Like your pastor Matt gave that message when I went with you the other day. It's like, Christ knows you fully. He's always accessible. And so anytime you're in that deepness of pain, well, he completely understands that feeling, and he's right there with you at all times for free communication whenever,
at any time, right?
And
mentioned
then,
that on the last couple episodes ago.
Yeah, and then you don't even really need to speak. You can just ask God to be with you and just sit in his presence, and the Holy Spirit prays on your behalf. That's what the Bible teaches us.
Yeah.
Was
When-
that? Oh, sorry, Tim.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Was that friend that helped her a believer?
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how.
Yeah. And that's what we're
She had
supposed to
sent
do.
out texts to her friends, I guess, like
Saying goodbye?
warning signs maybe,
Yeah.
and like Ronnie said, she forgot to turn her location off, and I guess her friend was one of the people that she texted, and she was there at an instant.
Yeah. Well, I think that I don't want to get into the details because I don't know if that's like a thing that needs to be shared publicly, but her friend or partner, had betrayed her, right? And then they made amends, and then it happened again. Mm-hmm. And so then once that happened, she went into a spiral.
Yeah.
And so then I guess she had like texted the friend group like it happened again, essentially. Not necessarily that she was like, I'm going to go jump off the walking bridge.
Right.
But it was enough for her friends to go, oh, we need to go find her.
You got to check on her.
Be worried.
We got to
about
check
We
on
need to
her.
go check on her, right.
And that's like our responsibility is to have that kind of empathy with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like don't just be so
You'll be fine.
disgruntled all the time.
Or
like
rigid.
like I posted a thing on Facebook the other day with this picture of just random traffic, and it's got all these things that the people in the traffic may be going through, and it's like you never know. Like with the cheerleader, like that from the outside, she probably looked like she had a really, really great life, just like Robin Williams and any other famous person that may have killed themselves. It's like things may look good from the outside.
Yeah.
You have no idea how somebody got where they're at or what ghosts from the path to get where they're at still haunt them or what new betrayals come up. You have no idea. So, and we can't see people as deeply as Christ sees us. So we have to just almost assume like they're going through something terrible that I have no knowledge about.
You're speaking to something, one big flaw of mine is that. So, we're called to love people always. As Christians, that's what we're called to do. We're not called to judge people. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't call out sin and we don't help, As loving people, we need to call things for what they are. So I'm not saying that. But our number one overall priority is to love people and to show Christ's love to them so that they ultimately come to him and let him do the work of cleaning up their problems. We got our own problems that he's working on with us. But that's something I struggle with. So that picture that you shared kind of hit me in a way that's like, okay, I'm driving down and like somebody gets into my lane, cuts me off, and I'm just immediately, I'm fired up.
As most people are. It's not just you.
I know.
Most people do that.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it struck me in a way because it's like, oh, yeah. Like there are people dealing with, even everybody in this room has their own struggles at home that they're not talking about. And we're pretty open. I mean, we talk about our struggles openly here. Yeah. And even so, there are things that we're dealing with that we're not bringing to the table because, we're busy. We got other things going on and all that. But so then you magnify that times 1,000 when you're talking about people in public. And how you treat them is going to be their, even if they don't know you're a Christian, it's going to be their interaction with someone who is and who had the ability to show God's love. And instead you chose the opposite. So anyway, your meme stuck with me the other day because I'm like, I need to be reminded of that all the time. All the time.
I mean, it's a graphic that just
I wish I could just remember that all the time.
Taught perception and empathy.
Another cool story from the other night was when they were highlighting the baseball player.
Oh, yeah.
And just talking about the joy that he lives with on a daily basis and how when you see him, you know that he has a great relationship with God.
Yeah.
Like, I think we could all just do a better, just be better about that.
Does he seem like he's always a happy person?
He seems like it.
So that just goes into what we were just talking about. People put that up. Doesn't mean it's always true.
But you can tell
there's a difference.
There's a difference.
Talk about the joy of the Lord.
It was genuine.
I think joy and happiness are two different things.
I get that, but that doesn't mean he doesn't struggle and just put on the mask.
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
yeah, true. Everybody goes through stuff.
Like we just said, everybody puts on like Robin Williams, for example. You would never guess he did what he would do.
True.
So like, they might seem great 99% of the time, but there's 1% where they're putting a mask on.
Well, he's using that as an example of like that someone that is truly dialed in and living his life for the Lord. Like you can tell the authenticity of that through it says that you'll see the fruits.
Right.
Yeah,
right. And I
it's
agree.
Like a happy-go-lucky, weird
I'm saying more of like you say that, but there's also more to it than what you just see. There's always more to it.
The guy literally was given an award that night. I don't remember what exactly the award was, but just for, I guess, just setting a great example.
So the story built up. So he had grown up in a broken home. He had, like, his mom and dad were close. They got him into baseball, and then they split when he was like 9 or 10. And then that like shattered. He didn't believe for a long time. So it's not like he was just like a happy-go-lucky guy. But he's talking about when he became a Christian. how God radically changed who he was.
His whole
So
demeanor,
now,
everything.
Right.
The fruits of the Spirit.
It doesn't erase the pain,
Right.
but it changes your perspective on it. That's
Right.
why in John 16, okay, Jesus has said all these things to the disciples, and I think it's the end of John 16. He basically says, "I tell you all these things because you'll have trouble in the world." I can.
You can look it up. You can look it up
Yeah,
if you want.
yeah.
But no,
I know where you're
first of
going
all,
with it.
I agree.
But his
I
peace,
get what you're saying with it,
he's
yeah.
overcome the world, and we
Right.
get his peace by following him. So even though those situations still come up, and they do daily, it's almost weird because you have like an eternal peace.
Right.
So even though things come up that make you want to die, you can maintain and get through it, knowing that this is just
It'll pass.
this is what Christ was talking about.
Right.
This is the trouble that I'm going to have.
Right.
But I can still be at peace, and I can still be here for my family and
Right.
for my kids and for my friends and for all the people that I'm hopefully will have the chance of sharing the gospel with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's forever, even if it's not a this shall pass thing, we're talking about is like they call it a peace that passes beyond all understanding.
Yeah.
So it's not always necessarily like, it's a mask. It's something that God is literally like putting like, almost this, shell over us. And
Yeah.
so no matter what's going on, I mean, look at Job and, all the struggles that he
story.
went through, Job. But but then people can see that it's really a different thing. It's joy of the Lord. It's not just we're being happy.
I just think it was
Right.
it was just interesting how we went from that to that story. But we're like in the beginning of it, we're talking about how do people become more vulnerable and open up about their issues.
Yeah.
But then we talk about a guy who just got an award for being like a leader, like a mentality leader. Being a man of God. But he has his struggles. Does he feel comfortable enough to open up about his vulnerability? Like you know
He
what I'm
did
saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm
in the
saying.
videos that they showed of him talking.
Yeah, so that you're bringing up a good point because I know I see exactly what you're saying. I think that this comes back to discernment.
Yeah.
So that if we're talking about two different people, the first person, let's say that you don't know if they know Christ or not. I don't know. For me, it's like if someone is overly happy always, I get some red flags.
It's a facade.
It's like, okay, what are you covering up? What wound are you trying to avoid dialing in on?
Right.
And you can pick up on that. If you meet a Christian who is always full of joy, someone who has that fruit of the Spirit, who truly trusts Christ, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Because it's like they are at peace always, which is something that I've been convicted about too. As a business owner, it's a struggle to be at peace, especially when Dakota and I had a really difficult situation last week with a client. And the fruit of my spirit in that for the next day or two after that were not of...
A little sour.
They were not of God. Like that was not... I should have, in that moment, been able to... And that's just a conviction thing. I think that's Christ allowing us to go through things to help us build these...
Right.
Get the fruits of the Spirit. But my point is in saying, when you meet someone who has that, there's a distinct difference in knowing that they have peace and joy, but that they're also able to be real.
Right. I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
there's tons of people out there like that baseball player, and I just want obviously I'm not speaking directly to them, but I just want them to know that do you think those people know that they can still be vulnerable and show that they have weaknesses, moments of weakness, and it's not just all like show and tell.
Happy-go-lucky.
That's the importance of telling your story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So our story is our testimony. And so now we're all on a pretty good level, but we still have junk in our minds.
Correct.
That makes us feel like trash sometimes.
Right.
So when you're open and completely upfront and honest about that, you don't know who you're going to be able to impact with that, because what you're going to say is exactly what somebody else is going through, and you don't know who's going to hear that, especially now that we're doing this kind of thing.
Right.
It's like somebody's going to hear something and likely have a perspective change.
I mean, that's
and,
the goal.
and see that,
But
okay, these guys are locked in with Christ. They're still going through this crap, but it's different.
yeah, we talked about culture changing growing up, and everything changes. When I was in high school, it was not what it is today. Now it's all working out, being a healthy lifestyle. That was not what it was back then. So the culture shift. How do we shift the cultures of young adults to be more vulnerable? and open up and, help themselves if they're going through stuff.
Tell them what you've been through first.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't force them to come to you and be honest about what they're struggling with.
Right.
You can develop a relationship with a young person, especially if you're at a church that has a good youth group.
Right.
Get involved in that youth group
like you said, I
and
think
tell
it comes
them.
down to Christ. Christ needs to come in and clean
Sure.
up.
And
But tell them
Right.
where you've been and where you're at, and don't spare them the details unless it's inappropriate.
Those can be eggshell conversations though, because sometimes when you push religion on people when they're going through tough times, they don't care to hear that.
Don't push religion.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell your story.
What you're offering is hope.
Right.
Is for them to see that, okay, well, this guy's been through these types of things, and it can get better, and that hope it needs to direct back to Christ. That's where the hope comes from.
Because I think what you're talking about, Dakota, is something that I have seen. It's like you hear people say, "Well, tell your story, and through your story, they'll find Christ." As Christians, that's what we got. We got the story of Christ saving us from what we were, right? But the problem is that sometimes it gets a little too. It's too religion interjected rather than
it's too scripted.
This is who I was. This is who Christ saved me, and here's how He did it. Here's how I recognize it. For me, it's like I had to go through extreme bouts of anxiety, and I never really had anxiety.
Yeah.
Extreme anxiety so bad that I literally drove myself to the hospital a few times, and then through that, and I've told this story I think on another episode. Through that, I was finally like, okay. I started just praying, whatever it is, reveal it to me, praying. It still wasn't fixed. And then one day it was like, okay, I figured out what God wanted me to do, but I would have never done that
if you didn't go through.
If I hadn't gone through. So that's my story, right? But Riot's might be different because Riot got saved at a young age, and sure, he got away and then came back. But so my point is, you just tell the story.
Right. I get that your testimony helps with that too.
You let Christ come through, but you can tell that story with peace and joy shining through if you have the fruit of that spirit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I
was just saying I think he does just a really good job of setting the example of just
he feels like a safe place.
When people see him,
feels like
they know that he's with God.
Yeah.
Well, his teammates when we are presented to the world, we should live and act in such a way that people don't just see that we're different, but that they want some of what we've got. That it's so different that they go, this guy's always at peace, he's always a joy, but it's not in a weird fake way. It's in a way that it's like, how does he do that?
Right.
Yeah.
How does he take a bad situation? How does he not act like I did the other day with that situation we had with the client? How does he respond in that way?
Right.
Because if I were from the outside looking in and I saw the way I had responded, I would say, oh, he's just like me. If I didn't know Christ.
It's a substance thing. And I think people can tell that, so that joy that's coming from the Lord, it has more substance.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. It has the minerals, but when it's just, when you're just putting on, a facade, essentially, it's
soul level.
thin.
It's
yeah.
soul level.
It's so much deeper.
When I think of a deep level thought on this and how I grew up and how I want to be a Christian now, take this for what it was. I don't want to be like the Christians that I grew up watching.
They were fake.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I struggle, and I teeter-tot on that line of trying to be, a real Christian, but also like as authentic to my core as I can be.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, shove scripture in your face. I'm not going to tell you that you have to repent and do all this. I want it to feel natural and organic to you, because growing up, it just all felt so scripted.
Well, I think
it all felt
so
scripted. They were just reading something and then collecting a paycheck. Is what it felt like. And obviously that might not be true, but that's my story.
The empathy kicks in there when think about from their perspective. Yeah, sure, there was a lot of people in the church that Ronnie and I went to that treated us poorly.
Right.
Overall. But we're trying to figure this thing out, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out how do we connect with young people and pull them towards Christ.
Yeah.
They had the same thoughts. They wanted that too, but they did it hadn't
Sure didn't feel like it.
Right.
That's the crazy
because
thing.
they didn't
Execution.
because the understanding of how to do that has developed since
Right.
then. Since we've become kids.
Oh, Jesus just fell.
No, Jesus. I'm sorry. Oh no. I love you.
I agree.
They
I think
still
it's,
wanted-
I think it's
the
I think
goal
it's
was still the
different
same.
The
now.
intent was good.
The intention was probably there. The intention was probably there.
There was some judgmental
The execution
stuff,
was not
Sure,
there.
and there still is.
But there still is.
There still is judgmental people.
People are people.
I did have one. I'll never forget him. I believe his name was Chris. You might have remembered him. It was one church leader, and he was unlike any of the others. It was the only church leader I ever connected with, and he was more of an outsider when you would view him. You know, he worked at Hot Topic, kind of gothic. He was definitely a little opposite of what the Bible at the time was feeling like it was supposed to be. So he didn't fit the mold of what a perfect Christian was supposed to be in my eyes. And he's the one who led me to Christ. And it's because he let me find him in my own ways by just talking to me instead of telling me what I had to do to get to where I need to be. You know, I'm more of the way I learn and I find things interesting is you let me figure it out myself. Don't just tell me something and then I'm supposed to just automatically think it. Let me figure it out for myself. And he helped me steer that. And I remember when I was 6 or 7, I accepted Christ, and I want to do that again as an adult because I've went through a lot of trials and tribulations through that. But I'll never forget that moment when he let me figure it out on my own, and that felt like the most authentic Christian moment of my life. And that's the type of Christian I want to be. And I'm still building on my faith every day, but that's the type of Christian I want to be. Is I want to lead people to Christ, but I want them to find Him on their own. Like I can be a resource, but I can't just tell you what to do and how to live your life as a Christian. That's for you to decide and you to figure out and you to dedicate your life to.
And that's for Christ to do.
Yes, and that's not any Christian. I mean, Christian's job is to be a resource of the
and
word.
give your testimony,
And
right? And give your testimony. So that is my testimony, I guess. I've never really deep dived into my testimony, but I'll never forget that a guy who to the church is. I don't know if you remember him, Ryan, but his name was Chris. Great guy, real shy.
He doesn't remember him.
Real-
Look at his face.
I think I know.
He worked at Hot Topic.
I'd have to look him up on Facebook.
He was
but
kind of
I'm
like
pretty sure.
a punk rock kind of guy. Probably smoked cigarettes outside of church. Like he just wasn't. He just wasn't
A
what
real
you
bad
think.
boy.
Yeah,
ICP
he just wasn't what I have all these
had a Camaro.
these Christians coming up to me, and you think they live the most holiest, perfect lives, and this guy was more of like a very an ordinary guy.
You found someone that was in the process.
Yes.
And closer
It
to
almost
where
felt
you
like
were.
it almost felt like he was on the brink of. He was saved, and he was fully like maybe he was still figuring out his salvation
Working
too.
out his salvation.
And we kind of worked together on both finding our own path.
Or he got to know you, because on the flip side of that, like that's how you want to learn, and that's how you wanted to come to Christ. And so maybe he got to know you enough to know that was the way that you did it. Because there are also people out there that will absolutely voraciously consume us giving them information and teaching them. They want to be taught like Jesus taught. He was telling them all these things, and they were receiving it.
I
But
think I'm the way
everybody's
where
different.
I want to figure it out on my own.
But that's why we have to build a relationship. That's why you don't just walk up to a stranger and just be like, bum, 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 bum.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to hell.
Do the relationship
I don't know if
first.
that's like an authority thing that I've dealt with, where like being told what you're supposed to do is how it's supposed to be happening, and it's just like a rebellion from my inner child.
Yeah, like you don't like doing what your boss tells you.
Exactly, and I never listened to him. And anyways, I don't know if it's like a rebellion that if
He
that's
said,
like
"Wait, it's me."
Yeah, you're screw your boss.
he's a real piece of work over there. I don't know if that's like an inner child thing where I don't really have a problem with authority, but I think it's all about approach too.
Yeah.
Everything's always about approach. How you approach me, if you have an issue with something, if you're demanding, or if it's just all about approach.
I just don't think he was coming to you from a place of judgment.
He was more of like it's not that he was questioning it. He was just talking out loud to himself, and it made me kind of like start putting pieces together to myself. I'll never forget it, man. Me and him cried on that bench. We had one of those church lock-ins. I'll never forget. I do think that was a moment when I truly accepted Christ into my heart. But now that I'm an adult, I do feel like I need to do it again. Like I just went to church last Sunday, and me and my wife were talking about how me, her, and Sage all want to get baptized again.
Nice.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
Yeah.
I think that you
Sage wants to do that?
Yeah, she does.
baptize her.
She said it.
Dunk her
She's
in
a baby. For
She
those
was
of you-
she was locked
She's
in
one.
that picture you sent.
She was
locked
dude. She
in.
was loving the music. She was clapping, patty cake, and all. It was fun. But then,
so I think that I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're good. You're good.
I think that Riot was kind of making a good point here, and it kind of coincides with. Okay, we have 5 minutes.
Left.
We have 5 minutes left. I've got a call that I can't miss. We've had some good conversations, but I'll make this point real quick. I think that as Christians we need to tell our story.
Right.
Maybe my story doesn't connect with you, and the way that I tell it doesn't.
And that happens often.
No, so also it's on me as a Christian to. It's not about me. I think that that's where it gets missed sometimes. That people really get caught up in their story and them, and it's less about who I am today is only because of Christ. It's only because of Christ. I'm a piece of crap it's Christ. And there's no such thing as a perfect Christian. I looked at Tim because we've had an ongoing debate for a long time.
That's not what I ever said.
For the record.
But go on.
Perfect Christian Tim over there.
No. But so my point is, I think that gets missed. So they communicate in such a way where Christ cleaned me up to perfection, rather than I am working out my salvation. What I mean by that is, I am trying to grow closer to Christ every day. But here's where I was, and here's where I am, and it's all because of Christ. And I think that my story is going to relate differently to you than Ryan's story, and vice versa. And that's why, as Christians as a whole,
testimonies
to
are
Tim's
important.
point, we need to be telling our stories because that's what matters, and that's how we share the gospel.
Right.
And we need to be telling our stories in such a way that it's centered around Christ.
And Paul talks about that. Like when you're telling your story and you're proclaiming your shortcomings, you're not boasting in what you've done to overcome that. You're boasting in the saving power of Christ. Mm-hmm. Like I was in this horrible, horrible situation, and nothing I did brought me out of it. Christ pulled me out of that. Yeah. Period.
And that goes back to the story of the cheerleader. So in that, it didn't feel like she was really telling her testimony, but that's exactly what it was. Because it just felt like she was telling a story about coming to FCA. But she was telling her story of salvation, and that's how it should feel.
Yeah.
It should feel like this is just a genuine story. We're just sharing, and I'm not like giving lessons on people how to share the gospel. Now, here's one thing I do want to say. We should also be able to discern and recognize when it is time to tell people this is how you receive the gospel. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we tell our story, but if as we've built ourselves up, if we can tell that this person is hungry and they're ready to make a move, we should be able to act upon that and know how to guide them to Christ. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say that, just tell your story and then walk away if that person is wanting more, kind of what Riot was talking about. I think that we should have the ability and the discernment to go, okay, if you want to know Christ and you want him to change your life and you want him to come into your heart, here's how you do that. And then be able to take it to the next level. So I don't want to miss that either. I don't think that, to your point, that should be like the first thing you hit somebody with if you're just telling them their story.
Right. Yeah.
But if that door opens up, we should be in such a position to be able to direct them. We can't save them. Only Christ can.
Right.
But we need to show them how to receive them.
I mean, I think you hit it nail on the head. You were like, you can lead people to Christ, but Christ has to do the cleanup.
He does the cleanup.
Yeah.
It's like there's a pastor I've seen talking about smoking weed, and the guy comes, kid comes to church who smokes weed, and he says to the pastor's talking to him about Christ, and he's like, I don't know, man. Can I even come to church if I smoke weed? And he said, if I'm a Christian, can I smoke weed? Because he really likes smoking weed. And he's like, yeah, you can smoke weed if you're a Christian. And he's like, well, that's not what I've been told growing up. And he's like, yeah, you can. I mean, the Bible doesn't say you can't smoke weed as a Christian. But the point he was trying to make was when you actually give your life to Christ, you're not going to want to smoke the weed.
Yeah.
Christ is going to clean you up in such a way. He's going to work on you internally so that you're able to share the gospel and live out the Great Commission.
Right.
And you probably can't do that if you're getting high all the time. It's not our job as Christians to judge someone. It's God's and Christ's job to clean them up and to mold them into who he needs them to be and to make maybe their weed smoking part of their story.
Yeah.
And so that's something I think that gets missed too a lot. It's like, well, if I'm smoking weed, I can't go to church because they're just going to judge me. And it's like, well, if we were actually preaching the gospel, we would say, sure, you can smoke weed, but get to know Christ. And then we let God handle that.
Right.
And if they have a real relationship with Christ, their lives are going to change. They're going to become different people over time. That doesn't mean they're not going to struggle. And then maybe they struggle with that addiction, but it means that Christ is going to mold them into who he needs them to be to share the gospel.
And that goes back to the FCA event. They were saying they had people in there, and they just want them to feel like they're a part of something first, like
we don't
be
need
open.
You,
And then over time, being in there and getting those lessons over and over again and hearing people's stories and everything, with that time, it works through them.
And then they become part of a small group, and then it goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think testimonies resonate with humans a lot better than probably the word.
Because we can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear real life experiences, and people realize, people go through stuff, and they get through it.
This guy went through what I went through. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I hate to cut it off. This has been a good conversation. Next episode, we will have a guest. So we have some guests coming in. I'm not going to drop any names yet.
It's The Rock.
We'll reveal those. Dwayne, if you're listening.
We'd love to have you on.
Please.
Come by
Come on,
anytime.
Rock.
Come on.
You can replace
Come by
Riot.
anytime. We do have some really cool guests, people that
can rock bottom
people
me.
that I'm grateful that
Through
Buy
the
your
table.
bows.
Through the table. That was his finisher, man. That was his finisher.
What was it?
The rock bottom. Or you could people's elbows Coda for me. That would be
Hold on. What
sweet.
about what did China used to do?
She was
What was the one where the
No
big
comment.
fat guy?
Rafiki.
Yeah,
Rikishi?
Rafiki.
Yeah. He put them
Rafiki
cheeks
was
on
in
you,
the
boy.
Lion King.
It's
That was
Rikishi.
the most.
Rikishi.
That was the worst one.
Rafiki was in the Lion King, Tim. Rikishi was the big Samoan
Hey,
fella.
they both had big red butts. They both had big
Hey,
red
look,
butts.
I was
you can
just
be canceled
going
for
with
that.
it, dude. What if Rikishi was the wrestler?
Yeah,
Yes.
Rikishi with
He
the
said Rafiki.
Rafiki.
I'm sorry.
This was
He's the one that
Rafiki.
held
I
up
just
Simba.
watched Mufasa, okay?
Guys, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. If you like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. Share the show with someone you know. And if you have any questions about Rafiki or Rikishi, send them into questions@bydesignshow.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you on the next episode.
Later.
See ya.
Yeah, there's a war going on inside. Just to name a couple, I battle with porn and pride. In a persistent struggle, a reoccurring huddle, a prayer meeting with me and the Holy Spirit. Feeling free, but no, I'm nowhere near it. But thank God for his conviction. The awkward part of me that may leave others to suspicion and call me into question. I confess my addiction. Know it's a lethal weapon. May compromise the mission. Being proselytized from this humanistic system. You think about that?